I entered the Chernobyl exclusion zone under a false name. Officially, I was Daniel Harper, a freelance documentary photographer interested in abandoned Soviet infrastructure. Unofficially, I was chasing a rumor, one whispered among stalkers, smugglers, and former liquidators who drank too much and spoke too quietly. They said something was still alive there, not animals, not ghosts, people. My real name is Michael Reed, and I had spent the last 3 years preparing for this expedition, studying reactor blueprints, sealed medical archives, radiation maps corrected by hand and pencil. I trained my body to endure radiation, hunger, cold, and isolation, but nothing prepared me for the psychological weight of the zone. Silence presses differently when it knows your name. The deeper I went, the more the forest reclaimed the road. Trees grew through apartment blocks, roots splitting asphalt like bones pushing through skin. Nature was patient. Humanity had fled in panic. My Geiger counter clicked steadily, a familiar and oddly comforting sound. Radiation was honest. It never lied about its presence. Humans did. I set up my first camp near the ruins of Kopachi. At night, the silence felt artificial, staged, as if the zone itself was holding its breath. Wind passed through broken windows like whispered warnings. I barely slept, haunted by the idea that I was being watched, not hunted, but observed. At dawn, I noticed the footprints, bare feet pressed into damp soil, human, but wrong, longer, wider, with an unnatural curvature that suggested altered anatomy. I followed them. They led underground. A rusted hatch, carefully hidden beneath moss, fallen leaves, and debris, opened into a tunnel reinforced with scavenged metal, concrete, and reactor shielding plates. Someone had built this recently, with skill and intent. My heart pounded as I descended, flashlight trembling in my hand, each step echoing too loudly. Halfway down, a voice echoed from the darkness. "Stop. One more step, and you die." The voice was calm, young, human. I raised my hand slowly. "My name is Michael. I'm not military. I'm not here to hurt anyone." A figure stepped into the light. He was tall and thin, his skin pale with faint luminescent veins beneath it, glowing softly like embers under ash. His eyes reflected the flashlight like an animal's, but they were intelligent, afraid. "My name is Artem," he said, "and you should never have come here." Behind him, others emerged, men and women, some visibly altered, others almost normal. A woman with elongated fingers that moved too smoothly. A man whose spine curved forward, allowing him to endure radiation levels that would kill me in minutes. A child whose breathing glowed faintly in his chest. Mutants, by any scientific definition. People, by every other. They disarmed me efficiently. No violence, no panic. Just discipline born of fear and experience. I was taken deeper into their underground settlement, a hidden city built from bunkers, metro tunnels, and forgotten laboratories. They called it Novaya Zemlya, the new ground. It stretched farther than I could comprehend, an entire civilization folded beneath poisoned soil. Their leader was Elena Markova, once a nuclear physicist stationed at Chernobyl before the disaster. Radiation had altered her appearance, leaving faint crystalline patterns across her skin, but her voice was calm, deliberate, unafraid. "We are not monsters," she told me. "We are survivors, and survival requires secrecy." They were descendants of scientists, workers, soldiers, and civilians trapped when evacuation orders failed or never came. Radiation rewrote their biology, but not their humanity. Children were born adapted, immune, changed. They hid because the outside world still saw them as experiments waiting to happen, and they were right to be afraid. I lived among them. Days became weeks. Time felt different underground, measured not by sunlight, but by reactor cycles and patrol alerts. They farmed bioluminescent fungi, mutated grains, and root vegetables that absorbed radiation safely. Water was purified through restored Soviet systems. Electricity came from salvaged turbines and experimental reactors designed to emit minimal radiation. Dr. Leonid Volkov, once a military biologist, explained their mutations carefully. Evolution under pressure. Accelerated adaptation forced by extinction-level conditions. "We are proof humanity can change," he said, "but proof scares governments. Control is easier than coexistence." Children played in reinforced tunnels painted with murals of forests, skies, and oceans they had never seen. One girl, Nadia, could hear electromagnetic frequencies no device could detect. She warned them of drones long before alarms sounded. They weren't hiding out of weakness. They were hiding because they understood human nature better than those above ground. At night, Artem and I talked. He had never left the zone, never seen a city untouched by radiation. "Do people still hate what they don't understand?" he asked quietly. I didn't answer, because the truth would have broken him. The drones arrived without warning, military-grade, silent, black. Nadia screamed before alarms activated. "They found us," Elena said calmly, already issuing orders. A vote was held. Some wanted to retreat deeper underground. Others argued they had the right to defend themselves. For the first time, I saw fear turn into resolve. Elena turned to me. "You can leave. You're not one of us." I stayed. They weren't soldiers, but they were brilliant. Traps built from reactor components. Electromagnetic pulses improvised from scrap. Knowledge was their weapon. The first squad never made it past the forest. The second reached the hatch and stopped there. During a surface reconnaissance, I was captured. No insignia, no names. Officially, I no longer existed. They questioned me for hours. "What are they? Where are they? How many?" I said nothing. Then Elena hijacked their communications. "If you enter," she said calmly, "you die, and the world will never know why." Fear outweighed curiosity. They withdrew. That night, the city mourned, not losses, but confirmation that the world above was still dangerous. Elena asked me to leave. "Tell our story," she said, "or protect it with silence. Either choice has a cost." I left at dawn. Back in Kyiv, then Berlin, the world felt unreal, too loud, too empty, too blind. I had photos, recordings, proof. No one wanted it. Too dangerous, too unbelievable. Warnings followed, quiet ones. I encrypted everything, hid it. Sometimes survival means staying invisible. Years later, I still carry the zone inside me. Novaya Zemlya still exists, hidden, watching, waiting. The children are growing, adapting further. One day, the world may be ready. Until then, I remain their witness, their secret, their promise. I tried to return to normal life, but normal life rejected me. Every city felt fragile, temporary, built on denial. People argued about borders, markets, and ideology, while an entire branch of humanity lived beneath their feet, evolved by disaster and forgotten by design. I saw Novaya Zemlya everywhere, in subway tunnels, in abandoned factories, in the eyes of those society chose not to see. At night, I dreamed of the zone, not of fear, but of balance, of a place where survival demanded cooperation, where difference was not a threat, but a fact of existence. I remembered the way Artem listened to the world, how Nadia laughed when reactor lights flickered, how Elena carried the weight of leadership without ever asking for permission to do so. I wrote their story 100 times and deleted it 100 times more. Each version felt like a betrayal. Exposure would bring attention. Attention would bring scientists, soldiers, corporations, flags. Novaya Zemlya would not survive that. So I chose silence. Silence is not cowardice. Sometimes it is protection. Years passed. Governments collapsed. New crises replaced old ones. The world grew louder, angrier, more afraid of itself. And still, beneath poisoned soil, a hidden civilization endured. I keep the encrypted archive in 3 places, 1 physical, 2 digital. If I die, the story dies with me. If the world changes, the truth will be waiting. Until then, the mutants of Chernobyl remain what they have always been, peaceful, patient, watching humanity decide whether it deserves to meet them. When that day comes, they will not rise as monsters. They will rise as mirrors. I often wonder what history would call them if history ever learned the truth. An evolutionary branch? A warning? A success story born from catastrophe? The scientists of Novaya Zemlya never asked such questions. They were too busy keeping children alive, maintaining reactors, teaching mathematics and ethics in equal measure. Their civilization was not built on conquest, but on restraint. Elena once told me that radiation stripped humanity down to its essentials. Power meant nothing underground. Wealth meant nothing. Only usefulness mattered, only cooperation, only memory. They archived everything, books, films, music, because they feared forgetting what the world once was more than they feared the world discovering them. Artem trained as an engineer. Nadia became a scout. Leonid continued his research, not to reverse mutations, but to understand them, to document what humanity could become if it survived itself. I realized then that Novaya Zemlya was not hiding from the world. It was waiting for it to grow up. The irony is cruel. Humanity fears monsters, yet creates them through neglect, through war, through indifference. The people of the zone were not monsters. They were consequences, and consequences have a way of returning. One day, perhaps after another disaster, the surface world will look underground not with fear, but with humility, and when that happens, the hidden city will open its doors. Until that day, the story remains buried, alive, breathing, watching. The first internal conflict I witnessed nearly destroyed Novaya Zemlya. It began quietly, as most real disasters do. A group calling themselves the Continuists believed hiding was a form of slow extinction. They argued that secrecy condemned their children to eternal underground life, that humanity above would never become ready if it was never challenged by truth. Their informal leader was Viktor Sokolov, a second-generation survivor, whose mutations allowed him to withstand extreme radiation doses. Viktor confronted Elena publicly. The debate echoed through the assembly hall, watched by hundreds. "We are not prisoners," he said. "We are heirs. The surface belongs to us as much as it belongs to them." Elena answered without raising her voice. "And when they cage your children? When they cut them open in white rooms and call it progress?" The city divided, not by violence, but by ideology. Families argued. Old friendships fractured. For the first time, fear came not from above, but from within. I saw Artem struggle. He understood Viktor's hunger for the sky, yet trusted Elena's caution. One night, he admitted the truth to me. I want to see the world, he said, but I don't want to lose ours. The conflict ended only when Nadia detected a massive troop movement near the zone perimeter. Reality silenced philosophy. Survival demanded unity. Victor never apologized, but he stood in defense drills alongside everyone else. That was how Novaya Zemlya endured, imperfect, divided, but human. Years after I left, the surface world brushed against the truth without realizing it. A wildfire spread through the zone, hotter than any before it. Satellites detected impossible survival pockets within the burn radius. Independent journalists speculated. Scientists argued online. Governments quietly erased data. From encrypted messages, I learned that Novaya Zemlya had mobilized faster than any modern city. Fire breaks carved from old reactor trenches. Underground chambers sealed. Children evacuated deeper than ever before. Not a single life was lost. Elena's final message to me came after the fire. "We are still here," she wrote, "and we are still choosing mercy." That sentence changed me. I realized then that Novaya Zemlya was not a consequence of disaster alone. It was a response to it, a civilization shaped not just by radiation, but by deliberate restraint. The surface world builds monuments to power. Novaya Zemlya builds systems to prevent it. When historians one day ask how humanity survived itself, the answer may not come from capitals or armies. It may come from beneath the ruins of Chernobyl.